All right, here we go again. I just ran across another $1 million article on the homepage of a major news site. It's titled The Stark Reality of What a $1.5 Million Retirement Looks Like in 2026. I mean, with a title like that, you know I'm in. Before even reading the article, I'm looking at the title, thinking, a stark reality, there's no way this is going to hold up. And to be fair, that's not the most unbiased way to go into reading an article. But after reading it, it doesn't hold up. This one is poorly framed and poorly executed, and yes, falls right into that category of saying, hey, if you have $1.5 million saved for retirement, it's probably not enough. Hey guys, what's up, and welcome back to the channel. Here's the part that really caught my attention. They say if you take a 4% withdrawal from a $1.5 million portfolio, that gives you $60,000 a year. A conservative assumption, but so far so good. But then they hit you with this. After federal taxes, you're only left with $46,800. And that was the exact moment when I was like, we need to pause and we need to walk through this. Let's tackle the tax math first, because this is the most glaring error in the entire article. Yes, if you have $1.5 million sitting in a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, any withdrawals you make are taxed as ordinary income. So that part is correct. And yes, if you look at the 2026 tax brackets, an income of $60,000 could technically push you into the 22% bracket. But here's where the article falls apart. It assumes that you paid 22% on every single dollar of that $60,000, leading to a tax bill of $13,200 and leaving you with an income of $46,800. That is not how our tax system works. We have a progressive tax system, which means your first dollars are taxed at lower rates. Only the top portion reaches higher brackets. And on top of that, we have deductions that we have to consider. And in retirement, those deductions get a lot bigger. At age 65 and older, there are now 3 layers of deductions as of 2026. First, we have the base standard deduction. For single filers is $16,100. For those married and filing jointly, it's $32,200. Then we have the age-based add-on for those 65 and older. For those who are single, it's $2,050. For those married and filing jointly, it's $1,650 per person. And then we have the new OBBBA senior bonus deduction. For those who are single or married, it's $6,000 per person, assuming each individual is 65 or older. But if we add all of these deductions together, for those who are single, they qualify for $24,150 total in deductions. And for those who are married, it's $47,500. So let's take a moment and actually run the numbers on this income, on current tax brackets, and factoring in the deductions. For a single filer, age 65 or older, if they have ordinary income of $60,000, they would end up with net income after taxes of about $56,000. If you look at those who are married and filing jointly, both 65 and older, with an income of $60,000, after considering taxes and deductions, their net income would be just under $59,000. Keep in mind that this new $6,000 deduction for seniors is separate from the standard deduction. So while the article says that a $60,000 income becomes $46,800, in reality, it would be closer to $56,000 or $59,000 depending on your filing status. That's a $9,000 to $12,000 difference right off the bat. And this truly matters. Yes, we're looking at income from a traditional account, so yes, we do have to factor in taxes, but there is a massive difference between what people are being told they'll keep and what they'll actually be able to keep. And this is before factoring anything like Social Security, income strategy, tax planning. So right out of the gate, this article is a little wobbly. Now, could taxes be higher than what we just showed? Absolutely. But for that to happen, we need to have other income sources. And this is something this article completely ignores. If you start to add in Social Security, perhaps a pension or an annuity or even part-time work, yes, these other income streams will stack right on top, and this can absolutely push you into higher tax brackets. But this is the important piece to focus on. If your taxes are going up, so too is your income. Now let's add in Social Security and look at a single household. Most of this individual has $2,000 a month in Social Security benefits. That's $24,000 a year. They have their traditional IRA withdrawal of $60,000. Now their total income is $84,000 pre-tax. Now this is where things get a little bit more complex. Social Security isn't taxed the exact same way as other income. It's governed by something called provisional income, and this determines how much of your Social Security benefit is subject to tax. In simple terms, you don't automatically pay tax on all of it. Only a portion becomes taxable based on your total income. So in this case, with this individual household, a portion of the Social Security does become taxable, and because the total income is now over $75,000, we do start to lose a little bit of that OBBBA senior deduction because of the phase-out range. So yes, this does make the tax situation a little bit more complex, but does that suddenly mean it turns into a high tax situation? Absolutely not. So looking at our single filer who is 65 or older with an $84,000 income, their after-tax income would be closer to $77,000. Their effective tax rate is about 8.5%. So what this actually shows is that even after adding Social Security, triggering taxation on part of those benefits and losing a portion of that new senior deduction, we're still paying an effective tax rate of less than 10%. Now let's take this one step further. What if we're not looking at a single retiree, and instead we're looking at a dual income household? Let's assume both spouses claim Social Security at full retirement age. Their benefit is $2,000 per month each, so the total household benefit is $48,000 a year, and again, we're making a withdrawal of $60,000 from that traditional account. Now we have an income of $108,000. Importantly, this household does not hit the phase-out range for the new OBBBA senior deduction, so they get to keep their full deduction in this situation. But they are in a situation where 85% of their Social Security benefits do become taxable. So let's look at their taxes. For this household, married and filing jointly, their total federal tax bill would be just under $6,000, giving them an effective tax rate of about 5.4%. Let that sink in. This couple has over $100,000 in income, and their tax bill is just under $6,000. That's a lot better than what this article says. This is really the opposite of what this article says. This article said that if your income was only $60,000, you would only keep a little over $46,000. But here we have a married couple who has double that income, or nearly double, and is still paying a lesser amount in taxes. And the reality is most retirees don't just have one account or one income source. They generally have Social Security, maybe they have a pension, maybe they have an annuity, maybe they have some part-time income, and maybe they have some money sitting in a brokerage account or in a Roth account. So we have a little bit of a more complex picture. All of these different income streams would stack and ultimately increase your income, but it's also important to consider that many of these income streams are taxed in more favorable ways. For example, money sitting in a brokerage account might be subject to long-term capital gains. If we have money sitting in a Roth account, none of those withdrawals are subject to taxes when money comes out. So what we're actually saying here is that households that would have $1.9 million saved up in a traditional 401k or traditional IRA are likely to have more income than what this article suggests and still have a more tax-efficient environment. Now let's talk about withdrawal rates, because this is where the article suddenly shifts the narrative. They suggest that a safe withdrawal rate would be in the range of 3.5 to 4% when looking at a 30-year retirement. Now, to be fair, that's not unreasonable. It is very much in line with traditional retirement planning. But the article goes further. They suggest that you should perhaps consider some part-time work to reduce your reliance on your portfolio in an attempt to drive your withdrawal rate down to perhaps 3%. Now, to be clear, I love the idea of a phased retirement. I love the idea of part-time work early on in retirement if you want to. If this brings you meaning and if it brings you structure, I say go for it, because bringing in another income stream reduces the reliance on your portfolio and yes, can make for a stronger retirement. So I would say a yes to checking a lot of these boxes. But forcing a 3% withdrawal rate? But this is where it becomes highly questionable. There's no data saying that it's absolutely necessary to go down to a 3% withdrawal rate for a 30-year retirement. Could you do it? Absolutely. Would it be safe? Extremely. Is it necessary? Well, the data doesn't support it. If we use forward-looking research, something like Monte Carlo simulations, which tend to be a little bit more conservative and look at a 30-year retirement time horizon, Morningstar suggests a safe withdrawal rate of about 3.7 to 3.9%. And keep in mind, this is a rigid inflation-adjusted withdrawal, no flexibility whatsoever. But what if we were to look at historical data on safe withdrawal rates? Now you're closer to 4.5 or 4.7% under modern-day assumptions. And if you introduce flexibility, which this article itself recommends, perhaps skipping inflation raises, adjusting your withdrawal down in poor performing markets, or being flexible with your withdrawal over time, even forward-looking Monte Carlo simulations suggest that you could use a safe withdrawal rate of 5+%. So what that means on a $1.5 million portfolio, if we're willing to bump our withdrawal up to 5%, we could be taking $75,000 a year. That is a $15,000 difference in annual income. And it's really important to get clear on what you think a realistic safe withdrawal rate is for your situation, because this will ultimately determine the size portfolio you think you need to fund your retirement. And more often than not, you're unlikely to use one single static inflation-adjusted withdrawal rate for an entire 30-year period. Life just doesn't seem to work like that. Spending just doesn't stay perfectly flat. More often than not, and what the data overwhelmingly shows is that many people tend to reduce their spending in retirement, and this tends to reduce your reliance on your portfolio. And if this is your situation, this is going to have a way of building in an added layer of safety to your plan. Let's take this one step further, because if we really want to test if a $1.5 million portfolio works, let's add some more pressure. Most financial planners assume a 30-year retirement if you retire at a traditional retirement age. Let's say you retire at the age of 65, they might project a 30-year retirement, so getting you to the age of 95. And to be fair, this is a great way to plan because you never want to run out of money in retirement, and it's very important to protect against longevity risk. But if we look at the data and we ask who's most likely to have a 30-year retirement time horizon, we might see that it's not those who are retiring at traditional retirement age. It's generally someone retiring earlier. Because they found Social Security life expectancy data, men in their early 50s often live into their early 80s. Women in their mid to late 50s often live to their mid to late 80s. So now let's build a more stressful scenario. Let's assume a retirement age of 55, a portfolio of $1.5 million, all in a traditional account. Our retiree has access to these funds early via the rule of 55, which I do have a full video on and I can link down below if you're interested. They have no other income until Social Security, which they will start at the age of 62, and their benefit will be $1,400 a month or $16,800 per year. Now we're looking at a 30-year retirement timeline. Let's consider a simple bucket approach. Bucket number 1 will cover age 55 through 62. These are your bridge years. There's no Social Security here. The portfolio must cover 100% of your spending. The time horizon is 7 years. Then we have bucket 2 for age 62 and beyond. Social Security will now turn on, and that will give us $16,800 per year, where the portfolio will come in and cover the remaining gap. So how much can this individual safely spend? Well, let's use a flexible spending strategy, not a rigid 4%. A $1.5 million portfolio could reasonably support 4.5 to 5% as a flexible withdrawal rate. That's going to give an income of about $67,500 to $75,000 a year. So for phase 1, ages 55 to 62, let's use a withdrawal rate that's right in the middle here. We'll use 4.7%. This is going to give them an annual income just over $70,000 a year. Now, we are using a conservative drive during this bridge phase. Could we potentially draw more and have it still be considered safe? Absolutely. But for this situation, I want to make this look as conservative as possible and see what our income could realistically look like in a conservative situation. Phase 2, age 62 and beyond, now Social Security kicks in and our portfolio only needs to cover $53,200 as the gap. Now look at what happened with our withdrawal rate. Once we hit age 62, it dropped significantly. Now our withdrawal rate is in the ballpark of about 3.5%. This introduces a great margin of safety for our portfolio and stacks odds in our favor for longevity. Now, it's worth mentioning that this withdrawal rate assumes that our portfolio has maintained its same value, and that is certainly not a guarantee. It often is the case when it comes to applying safe withdrawal rates, but it's certainly not a guarantee. So we have our highest withdrawal pressure early on in the retirement, but once Social Security turns on, that risk meaningfully drops. So even in a more stressful scenario, an early retirement at the age of 55, no income other than the portfolio for 7 straight years, and modest Social Security, this portfolio can still support $65,000 to perhaps even $75,000 a year in annual income. So if we're being generous, this article is clumsy at best. Here's why. Number 1, the tax math is wrong or at least very misleading. It assumes a flat tax on all income, and that is not how progressive brackets work. It ignores all eligible deductions for seniors, and these two factors dramatically increase how much of your income you're going to get to keep. Number 2, it ignores Social Security, and this is a huge miss. Most retirees will have Social Security, which changes the income picture. It's unlikely that a retiree in their 60s and beyond is going to be 100% reliant on their portfolio. Number 3, the part-time work framing is off. Part-time work can absolutely be helpful. I love this idea in many ways, but to suggest that you need to supplement your retirement with part-time work in an effort to reduce your withdrawal rate to 3% for a 30-year retirement just isn't supported by the data. And number 4, it frames $1.5 million as fragile. It presents $1.5 million as if it produces a surprisingly small income relative to a lifetime of savings, when in reality, with proper context, it can support a much stronger and more flexible retirement than implied. So if you have $1.5 million in a traditional account, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that you could support an income from the portfolio in the ballpark of $70,000 or $80,000 a year. And then once you adding other income sources, whether that's Social Security, a pension, annuity, a part-time income, we could easily have a household that's living on $100,000 a year in income. I really struggle with articles like this because they keep pushing the idea that $1 million isn't enough, 1.5 isn't enough, $2 million still isn't enough. And if you look at all of these types of articles, they really are using fear-based framing.
I don't think we need more fear-based articles. I think we need more conversations that are rooted in data, because that's where I think we get the most help. Now, I would add my 2 cents. If you do have $1.5 million sitting in a traditional account as you're heading into retirement, something you might want to consider would be Roth conversions. Because here's the reality, that portfolio will likely continue to grow. And once you hit RMD age, you lose control over how much you have to withdraw. Those forced withdrawals can push you into higher tax brackets later. And doing strategic and thoughtful Roth conversions over time can help to smooth out your lifetime tax bill and reduce your RMD pressure later on in life. So if you have $1.5 million sitting in a traditional account, this is not a problem. This is an opportunity that you get to solve for. So what are your thoughts on these types of articles? Leave them in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you help someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.